when moderate Republicans or any Republicans break with Trump, which they could do much more often in the days to come, he will actually back down. Pressure works. And the country was universally outraged by this bullshit idea of a slush fund for domestic terrorists. Welcome to Independent Americans. Welcome to a brand new episode 539. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff, and it is Tuesday, June 2nd, the second day of June. We are into June, and it is a primary day in half a dozen states nationwide. I'm coming to you from a non-primary state today, New York City, USA, and the weather here again is pretty awesome. I gotta tell you, summer is coming, and for many kids in America, school's already out, and for them, summer's already here, but not here in New York. We don't get done until June 27th, and I feel like we have holidays every other day. Maybe Mom Donnie will have thoughts on that, more coming up later, but damn, we got another month to go before my kids are out. And today's artist is one that my kids love, the great Jack Harlow, singer, rapper, songwriter, originally from Louisville, Kentucky. He was born back in 1998, the same year I graduated from college. He started recording music in high school, and then in 2020, his first album, which went double platinum, and then he was nominated for a Grammy for Best Rap Performance. You know him from Lovin' On Me, Industry Baby, First Class, What's Poppin', and I'm picking him today because he has a new neo-soul album out called Monica. And it has a lead track called Say Hello, which is very groovy. And the whole album is very different from anything he's done before. I think it kind of harkens back to Maxwell or D'Angelo. The latest album is entitled Monica. Lots of good tracks. And I heard about it on Song Exploder, one of my favorite podcasts, one that I highly recommend. I will shout out other podcasts in the podcast universe. Song Exploder, one of my favorites for the summer, highly recommended. I hope you'll recommend this pod to other people just like I did to you, because we always bring the 5 I's in every single show. Independence, integrity, information, inspiration, and impact, especially on a primary day like this. No guests. Me, you, quick fire, highly recommended that you stay vigilant. All right, I'm going to have some recommendations for you. And today's recommendation, most of all, is that you focus on our top topic. Which is, it's a massive primary day. I know summer's here, and if you're not in one of those 6 states, you probably didn't even know it was primary day, but it is Tuesday, which means at least this type of year, it is a time for primaries in some part of the country. And today, it's California, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. And folks will go to the polls to pick their nominations for key positions. It's maybe the most important primary day so far, and it's also a day where millions of independent voters will again be pushed out, be blocked out, be kicked out, be not allowed in closed primaries in places like New Jersey, where public funds go to fund public elections that are private. They're not really public, they're private. They use public schools, they use public workers, they use public machines, but they're private, and that's bad. But open primaries will be happening in California. And there was some good coverage of our recent press event that we did on Friday. And there's nobody that really pushes back to the open primaries in California, except the parties that want to maintain their power and their rigged system. California's open primary today is supported by over 70% of voters. And it's what right looks like. And it's what most Americans want nationwide. I'm going to give you a couple of quotes from this article that they wrote in the Center Square. The first is from our friend Nick Troiano at Unite America. He writes that he said that the good news is that California is one of 3 states that have abolished traditional party primaries. That is not the case in other states around the country, especially in 16 states, where close to 17 million independent voters are entirely disenfranchised. So when you compare it to perfect, California's system is not perfect. No system is. But when you compare it to the status quo in 47 other states, California has one of the most representative, most participatory, most functional election processes in the entire country. That's from our friend Nick Troiano, and he is right. I was quoted as saying, many of us don't get to vote on the people who will ultimately go to Congress to determine whether we go to war. I'm talking about those of us in closed primary states like mine and in New York and New Jersey. Chad Peace is a legal advisor to the Independent Voter Project, with the co-authors of the California Top 2 primary. He said the purpose of the primary is a voter-nominated primary. It's not a party-nominated primary like you have in 47 other states. This is really important. Voters are deciding, not the parties, not the party bosses, not the billionaires. Our friend John Updike, frequent guest on this show and the visionary head of open primaries, says if the Democrats can't inspire enough voters to get from round 1 to round 2, that's on them. Same with Republicans. Some have called it a jungle primary. I don't like that. It's an open primary. It's top 2. And I think open primaries in California and in select other states are what real democracy looks like. And if you stand against open primaries, you stand against an equal vote for all Americans. Americans like me, Americans like you, veterans, first responders, teachers, union workers, people of all backgrounds. If you stand against open primaries, you stand against all of us and on the wrong side of history. Closed primaries are the crooked and rigged past. Open primaries and equally empowered independent voters are the future. So stand with me. Stand with Independent Veterans America, all the leaders I quoted and their impactful organizations, and help us fight for a better democracy. So on future primary days, people won't be blocked out of having an equal vote. Stay vigilant. All right, it is a primary day. I will be covering it throughout the week, and I will be covering it on CNN later tonight for a full hour in the 7 o'clock Eastern time slot with Aaron Burnett. But let's go deeper. Let's go deeper into some of these states today and go below the radar. All right, in California, this has been a wild one. The mayor's race is going to be front and center, and also the governor's race. In the governor's race, looks like Javier Becerra, the former Health and Human Services Secretary, is the top guy. Tom Steyer is a billionaire who spent $200 million of his own money to keep himself in the race. Now, there were a lot of folks that were worried in the Democratic Party that the two Republicans, conservative political commentator Steve Hilton and Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, would emerge. But it looks more likely that it will be a matchup against Hilton against a Democrat. So we will see. We will watch this space. Also of note, in California today, Karen Matthews is running. She is a Navy veteran. She is a doctor. She is running in California's 23rd district against a Republican incumbent. She's running against a number of Democrats. If you're in California today, in California's 23rd, I encourage you to vote for Karen Matthews. She is truly an independent candidate. And if she makes the top 2, she will be in the final election against the Republican incumbent. I think it underscores how independents are not the spoilers. In a race like this, the Democrats are the spoilers. If Karen wins that and ends up in the final 2, I hope to have her back on the show here soon. There's also a primary in New Jersey where Representative Tom Keene Jr. Will be on the ballot today. He's running unopposed, but nobody knows where the hell he is. He hasn't voted in the House since March 5th. He hasn't appeared at a public event in his district, no town halls. There's a lot of frustration and anger. The New York Times was reporting on this, lots of others. But the race for the chance to take on Keene will be decided today. It'll either be a Navy pilot, former Navy pilot Rebecca Bennett, the leading Democrat in the race, but she's got a couple of challengers, including Michael Roth, a former Biden official, Tina Shaw, a doctor, and Brian Varela, a businessman. But whether they are independent Democrats or Republicans, veterans are continuing to emerge as formidable candidates. Let's go over to Montana, where independent Senate candidate Seth Bodnar, who's been on this show, has now made the ballot. He is not on the ballot today because he's an independent, which is great. But the Senate race was never supposed to be interesting. But when Senator Steve Daines decided to withdraw, Kurt Alme jumped in. The 5 Democrats are running to be the nominee, but none are seen as having a real shot in winning the November election. This is a great example, again, in Montana, where the independent's not the spoiler, the Democrats are. Democrats have no chance of winning in a place like Montana. But Seth Bodnar former University of Montana president. He has a chance. And let's talk about Iowa. Over in Iowa, again, from the New York Times, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and his allies see a guy named Turek as the best candidate to flip this seat. He is running for the open seat that was held by Senator Joni Ernst, who is going to retire. So we have a wide open race there, and we will see what happens. In New Mexico, former Interior Secretary Deb Haaland could make history. If she's elected as the next governor in New Mexico, she would be the first female Native American to serve as a governor of any state. She's not an independent, but I've been impressed by Deb Haaland. I think she has to do, she can do a really great job. She has to get through a primary first. She's the front runner, but she's running against a guy named Sam Bregman, the district attorney of Bernalillo County, and the father of Alex Bregman, the all-star third baseman for the Chicago Cubs. As politics and sports continue to intersect, I'll have more on that coming up. Whew. It's a busy primary day. I recommend you keep track. We will see who wins, and we will stay vigilant. Stay vigilant. Stay vigilant. Speaking of winners and losers, Trump has actually lost. Yes, he actually lost on something. The Senate stopped him on something. It was the overwhelmingly unpopular $1.8 billion fund to compensate or pay out insurrectionists and domestic terrorists. Yeah, it was really unpopular. It got a lot of pushback from Republicans and, of course, from Democrats. Trump's political allies would benefit. He would basically pay out people, including oath keepers and extremists. But I think it's important because when moderate Republicans or any Republicans break with Trump, which they could do much more often in the days to come, he will actually back down. Pressure works. And the country was universally outraged by this bullshit idea of a slush fund for domestic terrorists. So hold the line, and it's another reason why we all need to stay vigilant. Independent Americans, the 2026 primaries are taking shape, and you can trade on the biggest political races on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primaries, election outcomes, and the biggest political storylines as they happen. This is something I've wanted to incorporate into my show for a long time. Because if you listen to the show, if you watch the show, you know what's going on. And you might want to try to put a bet on it. Everybody else is betting on it. They're betting on sports, and a lot of folks are betting on politics, and you've got a shot too. For example, in this week's California primary, will Javier Becerra win the governor's race in the primary? Right now, Becerra is currently trading at 87%, which means a $100 trade would pay out $113.89 if he wins the election. He'll have to beat Steve Hilton, Tom Steyer, Chad Bianco, Antonio Villagrosa, Eric Swalwell, Katie Porter, and a whole bunch of others. But you can place your bets and you can win. You can also bet on when will traffic at the Strait of Hormuz return to normal. Will it be before January 15th or June 15th, or will it be after? If you say it's before June 15th, there's a 4% chance. A $100 bet would make you $598.37. This is the kind of stuff you can bet on Kalshi's political market. Let me give you a fun one for this week in particular. Will Trump attend an NBA Finals game? Will he do it or not? In any game, San Antonio or New York. There's a 60% chance right now. So a $100 bet would pay out $159.57. I'm betting that he goes. What are you doing? Let me know. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your positions. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code INDEPENDENT to get $10 when you trade 10. That's independent in honor of independent Americans and our very vigilant listeners and viewers. If you use the code INDEPENDENT, you get $10 when you trade 10. That's Kalshi, K-A-L-S-H-I, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 and over, restrictions and eligibility apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi.com/regulatory. Place your bets, people, and declare your independence with Kalshi. All right, he lost that fight, but Trump's still doing Trumpy things. Today, he has nominated Bill Pulte to be the acting director of national intelligence. This is the person who will replace Tulsi Gabbard. He runs the Federal Housing Finance Agency, and he has absolutely no intelligence experience. So that's a pretty interesting move. He's a home building heir who runs the FHFA. He is a loyalist. He has been a warrior for Trump, and he could probably weaponize the DNI in a way we've never seen before. No word yet on whether or not he will be able to get through the Senate. Republicans are already raising questions. He may only be temporary, but he's also going to keep his other jobs because, like Marco Rubio, I guess you can give a bunch of people a bunch of jobs that are pretty big as long as they're loyal. A director of national intelligence is out. She was a frequent opponent of regime change wars. We still haven't seen real public comment from Tulsi Gabbard since she's left. No word on if it was in protest alongside someone like Joe Kent, who recently left, or if it was only because of her husband, who is facing health issues and cancer. But I hope we will hear from Tulsi Gabbard soon. She was on the show in the very first, I think, 5th episode, our first couple of episodes. And I invite her to come back on. If there's ever a time we need to hear from Tulsi Gabbard, it's right now. But in the meantime, her replacement has no intelligence experience, and our enemies are celebrating.
Our enemies are celebrating.
All right, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention, especially when it comes to Ukraine. Today is day 1559 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and overnight, it was a brutal one. It's been anticipated for a couple of weeks that Russia was going to wage a massive attack. Overnight, at least 6 have been killed, 46 injured, all across multiple cities. Casualties continue to grow. Jim Scotto at CNN said, not coincidentally, this attack is underway shortly after the U.S. delayed delivery of air defense missiles to Ukraine, and after Zelensky wrote an urgent appeal to Trump, writing, quote, I asked for your help in protecting Ukraine's skies from Russian missiles. Zelensky asked. Putin didn't care, and Trump ignored. And now, Ukrainians are dead, including a 3-year-old boy. A young victim of Russia's overnight attack in Dnipro was a 3-year-old boy. Julia Srevedenko posted the very, very heartbreaking, outraging video of rescuers recovering his body from beneath the rubble of a 4-star apartment building destroyed by a Putin strike. As she writes, a child who should have had his whole life ahead of him. My deepest condolences to his family. Every child killed by Russia is a tragedy that cannot be undone. That's right. UA Voyager underscores that Kyiv is a city of 3 million people. And they wrote, right now, fires are breaking out in courtyards after Russian missiles strike on apartment buildings again. Over 4 years into this terror, the world is still mostly watching it unfold. What a fucking broken world. Folks, Trump is not stepping up. Vance is not stepping up. Hegseth is not stepping up. And more Ukrainian children are dying. Even if our president won't stand with Ukraine, we must do what we can, support Ukrainian charities, support frontline aid groups, support the Ukrainian people in your social media in whatever way you can. Think about the children, support us at American Veterans for Ukraine. And remember, Putin did this, and he won't stop until he's stopped. The road to peace, in my view, goes over Putin's dead body or his removal. Down with Putin. Stay vigilant. And Slava Ukraine. All right, that's the worst kind of politics, but it isn't primary day here in New York, but there was some political stuff happening. Last night here in New York City, Brad Lander and Dan Goldman debated for the New York 10th Congressional District. This is my district, and I want to show you a clip here just to underscore why I think it's a reflection of our broken and rigged politics. Play that clip, please, Chris.
Yes, but after investigations.
Okay. All right. So I reposted that since the extremely disappointing partisan and annoying debate was last night. It was a Democrat debating a Democrat. And in too many other districts in America, it's Republican versus Republican. There's no debate at all in over 90% of House races that are over after the primary. I can't vote in the primary later this month in New York to determine which of those guys will be our next representative. And there won't be any opposition because whoever wins in June will be the congressman. It's broken. It's not just broken, it's rigged. And our congressional district deserves better leadership. We deserve to see a diversity of ideas. I think we need independent leadership. But until the rigged primary system in New York is changed, an independent like me will never have a shot. And Lander in particular, and countless other partisan hacks from both sides want to keep it that way, in New York City and nationwide. They say they support democracy, but they oppose open primaries. Call them out. And as I mentioned last week, Brad Lander was outside my school. Last week, today, Dan Goldman, after that debate, was outside my school. And I challenged him on open primaries. And he said he does support them. So I don't know if he's been on the record on that or not, but he said he supports it. And I want to give him credit where credit is due. I don't support either guy, and I can't vote for either guy. But I do think that Democrats and Republicans who have the backbone to stand up against their party and understand that open primaries are about democracy deserve some credit, especially because Brad Lander, you may not know this, but if you live outside of New York City, you should, is one of the most ferocious opponents of open primaries. He stood with Mamdani, and he stood with the Democratic Socialists, and they are now standing with him. So maybe this is payback. If you block the open primaries and ensure that the Democratic Socialists can win the primaries going forward, they'll get you a congressional seat. Watch this space, folks. Don't take the bullshit and stay vigilant. All right, we're still holding out hope for independent candidates and supporting them. Tomorrow, I will have a new installment of my Meet the Independent Candidate series. We are the people's champion. We are not just moving the needle, we are the needle. And let's talk about culture. I think that you're seeing that more and more celebrities are talking about jumping in. There's no word yet on whether a late entry could happen in Texas, but I would watch people like Mark Cuban. Watch out for people like Matthew McConaughey. All across this country, as the primaries get settled, there will be some states where an independent, especially a self-funded, wealthy, or celebrity candidate could make an impact. And it could also include people from sports. And it's been an interesting day or week in sports. Yesterday, beneath the radar, I think, was one of the biggest football days in a long time. The Eagles have traded superstar wide receiver A.J. Brown to the Patriots. Drake May is going to get a great pickup there. The Browns traded maybe the best player in football, Myles Garrett, defensive end, to the Rams in a blockbuster. And Russell Wilson, a Hall of Fame quarterback, Super Bowl champion, turned down an offer from the Jets, which is probably a smart thing to do. And he will join Bill Cowher and the team, excuse me, Bill Cowher and the NFL team at CBS. So watch this space. But I've told you the invasion of politics into our sports is not going to stop, especially around the NBA Finals. In the attention economy, every politician is trying to break through, and sports is a way to do it. Cue Mayor Zohran Mamdani here in New York City.
Who's ready to watch the Knicks? Me! Who's ready to watch the Knicks win the championship? Me! All right, here we go. Here is our mayor's order, repealing kids' bedtimes for the Knicks finals run. Are we ready? Who here was alive in 1999? No, you were not. You were? Okay, we're going to talk about that later.
I don't know when I was born.
All right, here we go. We're signing it.
I don't know.
Okay, my friends. Executive order is signed.
I don't know when I was.
Bedtime is repealed. All of you can watch the finals.
Yes, it was a very, very well-covered political event, but definitely a guy who doesn't have kids. He doesn't have to get up his kids the day afterward. My kids are probably going to stay up anyway, but I'll tell you one thing. New York City teachers are going to have their hands full on Thursday morning when all these kids stay up tomorrow night. but the Knicks are going to be front and center against my Spurs. I am invoking the power of mini Patrick Ewing. I wish we had him tomorrow night. We will not, but we will have lots of political bullshit. And now that includes a back and forth between Texas's Ted Cruz and New York's Senator Gillibrand. Ted Cruz wrote to Gillibrand, care to make a wager? If the New York Knicks win, not going to happen, the series, then you and your team get Texas barbecue, Shinerbach beer, and Bluebell ice cream. When the Spurs win, the loser wears a winner's jersey. Deal. And she wrote back, Kirsten Gillibrand wrote back, you're on. If the Spurs somehow win the series, we'll treat you and your staff to the world-famous Joe's Pizza and Brooklyn Lager. Go, New York, go. I spent a lot of time in Texas. I love Texas barbecue, Shinerbach, Bluebell ice cream, all excellent. And obviously New York, Joe's Pizza, Brooklyn Lager, all good stuff. But I am really not looking forward to politicians talking about sports. Some of them are just really bad at it. But it's that time of year, and it will get worse. But I highly recommend you do watch the NBA Finals. I think it will be something good. The politics won't be, but the NBA Finals will be. And it will be a time, just like all other times, to stay vigilant. All right, tonight I will be on CNN for a full hour with Jamal Simmons, S.E. Cupp, and Gretchen Carlson. Big shout out to Aaron Burnett, who continues to have me on to represent the independent analysis. I'm going to talk about California. I'm going to talk about all these primaries happening across the country. I know that corporate media gets banged on quite a bit, and I think it's usually appropriate, but Aaron Burnett does a good job with her show, and she empowers and understands and gives space for independence. So does News Nation. Tomorrow, I'll be on at 3 o'clock with Connell McShane for my weekly hit there, and possibly with Nicole Wallace, who always gives me space as well on MS Now, either in the 4 or 5 o'clock hour. And then I'll be on again tomorrow night on CNN between 7 and 8. All these interviews are always posted on our YouTube page, so you can share them far and wide. I'll use some of them for special episodes. We will have a new independent candidate on the show tomorrow, a new independent veteran candidate that you probably have never heard of, but it's a person you should know. Also, Guy General Hertling will be coming up again soon. I just emailed with him. Henry Rollins will be coming up soon. Jeffrey Wright, the great actor, and others. We have lots of good guests coming up in the next couple weeks, so continue to spread the word. Follow us on social media, subscribe, get the merchandise ahead of Father's Day or ahead of the NBA Finals. If you want to be a truly independent with regard to the NBA Finals, go to independentamericans.us. Big thanks to our Patreon members and to the folks on YouTube who are subscribing. You can subscribe on YouTube, get extra content, and help fuel this kind of content. Also, the Morning Independent hits your inbox every single morning. Get that. It'll be linked in the show notes. And be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching, and send me your feedback. I'm going to do more mailbag, so if you've got comments or reactions or guest recommendations or predictions, let me know. America might be divided, but here at Independent Americans, we're working to change that, adding light to contrast to heat, and calling bullshit on the politicians of both sides, especially on primary days. So if you're now among the 45% of Americans who are independent, and especially the 17 million who are blocked out of primaries, this is your show. Our independent movement is hope for the future. Country over party, people over politics, light over heat. Disrupting the status quo and fueling a new movement that is growing. You will see it tonight on primary day in California, where 3 million independents have the opportunity to vote in the primary. It's a sign that our movement is growing. And hope is still the oxygen of democracy, and we're bringing it. If you enjoyed this episode, share it far and wide. Highly recommend it to others, and invite others to declare their independence. Stay vigilant, my friend, because eternal vigilance, you know the deal, is the price of freedom. And today is a day to pay it. So if you're in those states where the primaries are open, especially in California, get out and vote. If you're in a state like New Jersey that is closed, get out and raise some hell. And know you're not alone in your vigilance. We're all vigilant, and we're all in this together. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. Thank you for tuning into Independent Americans. Look for me tonight on CNN and tomorrow on the news TVs, always on YouTube. I will see you tomorrow. Happy primary day from little Patrick Ewing. Go Knicks, and stay vigilant, America.
Archipelago, he tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wake, it's time to grow. And it's not cool to believe in school, but if I can say one thing, I've seen the children of the revolution and the good trouble they can bring. He says the red and blue are dead and independent is an attitude. An island in the sea of rhetoric, and I can it's time to grow.
Powered by Righteous Media.